Parshas Shoftim. This week's Parsha discusses various laws about going to war, battle of the children of Israel with its enemies. And one of the notable passages in this week's Parsha begins with the first verse of Perek Chaf. That's Pasuk Aleph, chapter 20. It says as follows: when you go out to battle with your enemies, if you see horses and chariots, much larger army population than you, don't be afraid, because the Lord Hashem is with you, the one who took you out of Egypt. In other words, you have God on your side, you're going to be okay. Then it says in Pasuk Beis, verse 2, it says that when you're about to go to battle, the Kohen will come, and the Chazal tell us that this is a Kohen Mashuach Melchama. He's a Kohen who is specifically designated to inspire and encourage the people, the army, before they go to battle. And he says as follows: Va'amar Alehem, and he says to them, Shema Yisrael, listen. It sounds familiar. More about that later. Listen, Israel. Atem krevim hayom b'milchama al ogechem. You're getting close to battle with your enemies. Al yirach levavchem. Let your hearts not be softened. Al tiru, al tachpizu, al tartzu. Various characterizations of being unsettled. Don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. Don't be anxious before your enemies. Because the Lord your God, who is going with you to fight with your enemies and to save you. So Rashi here says the following. Rashi says, Shema Yisrael alludes, based on the Gemara in Sotah, alludes to a mitzvah that the children of Israel will perform that will be sufficient to save them in battle. What is that mitzvah? Shema. Shema Yisrael. We know the verse. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So the question here is, why do these words appear? It would seem that the narrative would flow even without those words. In other words, it says, V'nigash Kohen, v'diber la'am. That's in verse 2. It says the Kohen will approach. The language of V'nigash is always to engage. So the Kohen Mashuach Melchama, the Kohen who is designated for his special role in encouraging the troops in battle, he will approach and he will say, it says, V'diber la'am, and he'll speak to the people. It could just, V'amar alehem, and he says to them, and it could just continue, Atem krevim hayom. You are going today, you're getting close to battle. But instead it says, Shema Yisrael, Atem krevim hayom. Now, imagine if he had started with a special nigun, with a kind of sing-song. Let's say, Shema Yisrael. Well, that would immediately evoke the mitzvah Shema that we say at night with our children, at night for ourselves, in the morning, in the evening. Or if you would say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Without the Hashem Elokeinu, just Shema Yisrael. That would imply, that's another time. That's typically the nusach of Yom Noraim, of Ne'ilah perhaps, of other times. In other words, it would allude clearly to the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. So that's Rashi's understanding, and Rashi says that Afilu ein bochem zechus el Kriya Shema b'vad. Even if the only merit they have is saying Kriya Shema, kedayatem shir sheyeschem. You are worthy of being redeemed. Okay. So in other words, when you go out to battle and you've said Kriya Shema, you've said Shema, you're safe. Now the next psukim present a problem. It says that the Shoftim, they're the enforcers. You might call them the police. That's in modern day Hebrew. And then the Shoftim give the following 4 exemptions for battle. Number 1, somebody who built a house and hasn't yet dedicated it, let him go. He's exempt. Let him go back. Lest he die in battle, and another man will take it over. So there's a fear that he might die in battle. We have the next one. Somebody who planted a vineyard and hasn't yet redeemed it, and somebody who has betrothed a woman but hasn't yet consummated the marriage. Maybe somebody else will take it. So this is clearly talking about fears that people have when they go into battle. And then here's the final one. V'yasva Shotrim. The Shotrim will continue. L'daber la'am v'amru, and they'll say, here's the final exception. Mi haish hayorei v'rach halevav. Who is the person, the man, who is fearful and soft-hearted? Yelav v'yashov leveso. He should go home. Why? V'lo yimasis levav v'chav kilvavo. And he shouldn't undermine, he shouldn't weaken the resolve of his brothers, like his own heart. In other words, because he may be fearful, machlokas Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Kiva just says he's fearful of battle. He doesn't like. He gets freaked out when he hears the shields and he sees the drawn swords. He sees battle. He gets scared and he can't shake it. The Rabbi Yossi Aglili says that he's afraid of this machlokas in the Gemara. He's afraid of the sins that he has. In other words, in Misa B'Lochet, there's no death without some form of sin, and he's afraid. He knows that he has committed sins, and he's fearful that those sins will undermine his protection from God. Now, that seems to be in conflict with the Rashi that says if all you have is Shema, presumably, if all you have is Shema, that means that you have a pekel, you have your own package of shortcomings that you're dealing with. One could say, theoretically, that he has performed the mitzvah Shema, but he hasn't committed other sins. That seems to be something of a stretch. Now, there are those who resolve. So, in other words, the question is, if he has this protection because he said Shema, then what is he afraid of? So there are those who suggest, citing the name of Divrei David, others, that the protection of Shema Yisrael is for the group as a whole, but not for every individual in the group. This is not accepted. That there are those who say, Kli Yakar or others, who say, it's the Hachayim who says that that not even one person will die in the battle. So if not even one person will die, so why should he be fearful? The answer is he's human. An answer that one might suggest is that he's human. He's human, and even though he has the assurance that if he said Shema, and he could say Shema right there, that it would be sufficient to protect him, but he's so fearful because of his moral failings and feels so guilty, he won't be effective in battle, and he'll be afraid. He'll simply be afraid. A person like that who does not have the bitachon, doesn't have the confidence that he will not be able to make it, so he indeed will undermine the confidence of his fellow fighters, and so he should not be there. And Chazal say that all of the three others, about somebody built a house, somebody planted a vineyard, somebody who married a woman, those are all there to give cover to the soft-hearted, to the fearful one. Now, they also say that the type of fears that one might have is afilu sach bein yishtabach liyotzer. Even if he just spoke between yishtabach and the bracha b'yotzer, or in a different connection, it's hasach bein tefillah, somebody who speaks between putting on his tefillin shel yad and his tefillin shel rosh. His hand tefillin and his head tefillin, because they're both covered by one bracha, and therefore, if you speak between those, you've done something wrong. Now, what's the severity? Well, it's certainly not it's not like the three cardinal sins, and it's certainly not like of murder, pagan worship, or illicit sexual relations. It's not like chilul Shabbos. It's not like violating the Shabbos. It's not like eating non-kosher food, but it is problematic. And it's so problematic that it might undermine somebody's confidence, and according to some fortune, it might even be the cause for somebody to die in battle if he doesn't have a clean slate. Wow, that's pretty scary. I'd like to suggest during this time of Elul that we be very particular about not speaking during davening when we're not supposed to during prayer. There's certain points in which an interruption is absolutely forbidden. And that would be from saying Baruch She'amar all the way till the end of Shemona Esrei. We also know that a person is not supposed to talk during the repetition of Shemona Esrei. Now, these are things that are commonly, we see people do in shul. They may not do it regularly, they may just make a comment. There are also people who go around and just schmooze for the sake of schmoozing. This is inappropriate. And we all have our challenges in this regard, especially if we come to shul and we see people we know, we're friends, we like to socialize. It's part of the pleasure of going to shul. It's part of the pleasure of being in a minyan, especially a regular minyan. You have your friends, you can count on them. But we see that somebody who speaks when he's not supposed to puts himself at risk at a time of danger. And what we'd like to do is to be bulletproof as we approach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we approach the Almighty during the days of awe. I'd like to suggest that one of the things we can be particular about, especially in this time, is being very careful not to talk during times that are inappropriate during davening. And part of it is for ourselves, but we also see that we have a responsibility in our conduct not to undermine the resolve of others. There may be others sitting next to us who really don't want to speak inappropriately during prayer, but they're also nice guys. And if they're approached, they will respond. Don't approach. Don't talk. Don't approach. Don't undermine the resolve of others. And this is not just in the area of speaking, but it's in the area of mitzvah observance. It's in the area of accomplishing things in life. Be strong. And if you can't be strong, go home. Don't undermine the resolve of others. Have a good Shabbos.